Let's start by adding a progress layout to the favorites fragment.xml file, like we did for the recycler view. Once this is done, let's head over to the favorites fragment.kt file. First, we'll declare the variables. Now let's put the value of this return statement in a view variable and return the view. Then we'll initialize the recycler view, progress layout and the progress bar here. Next, we will initialize the layout manager for the recycler view. Now the last time we had used the linear layout manager, but this time we are going to use the grid layout manager. This arranges the items of the recycler view in a grid, which means that there will be multiple items in a row. Hence, we will need to specify how many items a row will have along with the context. This is how we will do it. We wanted 2 items in a row, hence we give the span count as 2. Now before we initialize the adapter, we need to get the list of favorite books. We will retrieve the list from the database, which means that we will need to create the async task class. This is how we will do it. Since we need to create a list for all the favorite books, we will need to obtain all the database entries. Since the DAO we created for retrieving all the data returns the list of the book entity, the return type for the do in background will be list book entity. Let's implement the members of this async task class and remove the to-do line. Next, we will initialize the database and then return the list of books. Now to get a list of book entities, we need to first use the async task class, then execute it, and then use the get method to obtain the result. To do all this, first let's create a variable. We'll create a variable like this here to store the book list. Now we will save the data that we get from the database in this variable. This is how we can do it. Here if you see, we have given the context as activity as context instead of application context, since a fragment cannot directly access the application context. So, this context that we have given here is a workaround for that. Why it cannot access the application context is beyond the scope of this training, so we will not go into much detail here. Now, once we get the list, we will check that the list is not empty. Also, we need to check that the activity hosting this fragment is not empty. If both these conditions are true, we will initialize the adapter and display the recycler view. We have done that here. We have written the statement here to hide the progress bar. Remember, we were displaying the progress bar while the data is being fetched? So we need to hide it once the data gets displayed. Now if you see, this code gets highlighted. And if we hover over it, it says that this condition will always be true. So let's keep our cursor here, hit Alt plus Enter and choose this Simplify Comparison option. If you see, the studio has made a change in this condition. It has simply removed the first condition. Let's go ahead with this. Now, let's run the app and we will open the favorite fragment once the data is loaded in the dashboard fragment. But why do we need to wait for the data to get loaded in the dashboard fragment to open the favorite fragment? We'll get to this in just a minute. First, let's see how the app looks. So we open the app and then we go to favorites. Yes, it looks good. Now if we want, we can put clicks on these items and if the user clicks it, we can display the description page for the book. But we won't be doing that in the videos. That part is for you to do on your own. Now coming back to the reason for opening the favorites fragment after the data for the dashboard fragment gets loaded. We won't tell you the reason, but we can figure it out together. So let's go to the app and we'll quickly click on the favorites without loading the dashboard fragment. The app closes itself. Now let's go to the logcat window and see what happens when we do this. So if you see here, we get the error saying that the context has become null in the dashboard fragment.kt file at line 109. Let's click here. This is the line where the error is occurring. So we understand that while the compiler was trying to display this toast, the context became null. To resolve this, we can simply write this if statement to place a check here. So we can say that if activity is not equal to null, then display the toast. This will make sure that the app does not crash because of this error. Here is a small learner activity for you. Find out other places in the app we have created where this error can happen and apply the check. Here is a little hint for you. Check especially for places where we send JSON requests. So we have successfully added a recycler view for the favorite screen. Our app is almost complete now. Click on Next to complete a learner activity and finally to complete the app.